always keep your ear open to listen to your clients, what they want. It's not always sort of pushing on them what you think they want.
To supercharge your business, you need the tools, skills, and confidence to get customers to desire what you do. This is the place you'll come to listen to advice and debate on business and marketing, tackling the biggest challenges and unlocking the biggest wins. I'm Si McMahon. Welcome to the Content in Business podcast.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Rob Lyon and this is the Spotlight session on the Content in Business podcast. And today I'm with Catherine Bayfield and Keren Haynes from broadcast and video production agency, Shout Communications. Catherine and Keren, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on. And so firstly, who are Shout Communications?
Well, thank you for having us, Rob. We're delighted to be here. We always like to talk about our own businesses, don't we? So we are really former broadcast journalists who flipped over from the dark side. We were the poachers, now we're the gamekeepers, and we've become broadcast PR specialists. And so we would describe the company as that, a specialist broadcast PR agency. And what that really means is we do anything and everything that could get a company or a brand or a charity or even an individual onto radio and television. I mean, I suppose you'd say that our bread and butter is really what we would call media relations. So this is us and our team of specialists really having good relationships with journalists and speaking to them about the stories and the expert spokespeople that we've got on our books and really creating opportunities for them, really getting them on the news. Occasionally we get a client onto a documentary programme. We had a client, P&O Cruises, who we got onto The Apprenticeship, for example, a few years ago. But I would say that most broadcast PR opportunities are in news or current affair programmes, and that's what we do. But we support that with some other things as well. And I'm sounding like an advert, but we do like to talk about
Absolutely.
What we do. We media train people because there's kind of no point having that fantastic opportunity on radio and television and then blowing it and thinking, oh, if only I'd said whatever your key message was. So it's how to make the most of those hard-won opportunities when you've got them. And we do some video and podcast production too. So as we know, the world loves a podcast these days, which is why people are tuned in now. And we help some of those brands and organisations create them too.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Sorry, was that too long?
Not at all.
No, I think as well, the importance of media training is another one of our services. It's great, isn't it, to get an opportunity to be a guest on a podcast or a programme, but we think that you need to be media trained these days or else you would stand out potentially for all the wrong reasons. And we've been doing it for 20 years. We must say that's a long time, isn't it, to keep a business going? But
yeah. Actually, nearly 21. It'll be 21 in March.
Okay.
We come of age in March.
I do think lots of businesses.
I remember that because of.
No, I was just saying, lots of businesses. I think survival is underrated. And it is difficult. Most businesses don't make it through the first sort of 12 months, let alone 21 years. So that's a real achievement in itself.
Well, thank you. I think it is as well. And I remember how old we are in relation to my youngest child, who was 1 at the time. So as he's coming up to 22 now, and I look back to those starts, I think, what were we doing? I actually had two children at the time, and it was not really the time to set up a business at all when you've got a toddler and a baby. But anyway, we did, and I mean, there's obviously been some bumps along the ways, but I think some highlights too, wouldn't you say, Catherine?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And started in a back bedroom in Ealing and a back bedroom in Godalming, and now we've come almost full cycle. I think we're going to talk about that later as to the whole change in the remote working and the different ways that we now work remotely, don't we?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that leads me on to my sort of next question. I suppose is 21 years has the journey been everything you expected?
Going to let I've got some insight there, and then
you know that thing. I mean, it's like saying, isn't it? What's the advice you'd give your younger self? But I would say, don't be naive. So we thought, I suppose, we'd had our careers as journalists, and then we'd both worked for another PR agency before setting up by ourselves. But did we really know about how to run a business? I mean, I was a business reporter at the BBC, so I was on things like Radio 4, Radio 5, sometimes TV as well, talking about business and economics. But that is so far removed from running your own business when, you know, it's everything from the most important but mundane things like, you know, all the things that corporately you've got to do, your tax and your VAT and your reporting. And then, you know, the HR, I think that has been a real learning curve over the years, and learning how to actually get the business in. We'd never done any of those things, and so I think we were a bit naive when we set up. But anyway, we hopefully learned quickly, and we ran a bit before we walked, and then we walked a bit, and then we've been running ever since. That's how I see it.
And also, I think we did learn fast, and it's been help and advice and mentoring and support along the way that's helped us. And Keren's probably too much, but she secured a place on 10KSB, which really, really helped us to grow our business. And I think that was a major sort of stepping point forward, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of that. So
No.
it was it's a goal. It's still ongoing, and I would encourage anybody who has got a small business and who is entrepreneurial to have a look at this. It's Goldman Sachs has basically set up this program, and as it says on the tin, 10,000 businesses. That's how many companies they're trying to get through on their courses. Right. And it was a bit like, I mean, I did it. It was probably about 9 years ago now, and I was one of the first cohorts. But it was a bit like doing a mini MBA. So every week there was something different to do, and it was in association with UCL. So you'd go along for your days, one day a week to the lectures, and you know, 1 week it was very good at looking at sort of the bigger picture. So it might be, well, what is your business and where is it going, and is it going to be able to I suppose survive through the bumps of an economy going up and down, for example. And then another week it was about finance, another week it was about marketing, and I think our marketing has really changed as a result, probably of this program. But more importantly, and I think really important for any business, no matter what you are, it made you step back from the business for that time that you were at university. And what they always used to say was people who own businesses are so busy doing the business that they almost kind of forget that sort of bigger thing. You can't have everybody at the coal face. Yeah. Sometimes you need somebody to step back and say, look, is this really working, or is there a better way to do it? Or could there be a new service? Maybe we need to retire one service. And it just gave me a different way of thinking. And then obviously every week I came back and Catherine and I would have a Thursday night and glass of wine, etc. And we discuss that.
I think
I'd call it a director's meeting.
I'd call it fabulous insight. But we were also talking about the kind of the whole journey, and the importance. Your biggest assets and your biggest headache is probably recruitment and HR and staff and things. And I think that's been something that's been an ongoing theme. And I think perhaps we were inexperienced. It's a bit like when you know that show nervousness to a horse or a dog, and it will pick up on it. And we perhaps were slightly guilty of that. And I'm going to let Keren tell you about the most shocking, outrageous HR incident, which is kind of just too much, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, we just to say that we think we have the most lovely team, hardworking, quite mature team working for us at the moment, and we're talking really sort of past years. But our most notorious hire, I think, we call him Liar Liar Pants on Fire, because
that's the polite version.
That's the polite version. He couldn't lie straight in bed, could he? We had really from day one, a nearly dying baby, heart condition himself, and then the biggest lie of all was when he said that his father had died. So first of all, it's his father was terminally ill with, I think it was cancer, and then his father was going to commit suicide because he was so depressed. Then his father died. Then there was the funeral. And it was like lies, just sort of piling on more lies. And there came a point when we suddenly went, do you believe that?
You
and
said
at that point, it was kind of
really died.
No, awful thing to say. But you know what? His dad hadn't died because, we were journalists, weren't we? So we eventually found said dad, and in fact, we spoke to his dad and his mum. And this is, this was a man who was probably about 30 at the time. So I would say he was our worst hire. And if you're listening, you know who you are.
Trump that one. But that's exceptional. That's exceptionally. But there's always, there's all sorts of interesting ones along the way. But that's the most memorable. And then we were thinking,
we have some fantastic hires though along the way too. And that really, without them, I don't think our business would have survived, because it is always about the teamwork, isn't it? Sounds a bit of a cliche, but it really, really is. We could have continued just the two of us at the cold face, but I don't know. I think that would have been quite hard at, during pandemic times, or, we've been through a couple of recessions too. So it is really, maybe we learned to hire better, or we were lucky with some of the people who came our way, but we've had some very good ones as well.
I think it's even with my team. I was speaking to my MD Simon yesterday, and we were both sat on a meeting room table, and whilst the team were all working away, and I just felt strangely guilty that I wasn't working. But as a business owner, you are working, but you're not doing the doing anymore. You realise you're working on the business in it, and it was a really strange moment to see. I couldn't get them. We were going to, Megan, who's just returned from maternity leave, it was her first week back, and we were going out for dinner. I couldn't get them away from their desks. And there's me as the business owner saying, come on, turn off your computers. We're going out for dinner. And it was such a strange reality. I didn't even know what they were doing, nor should I, because they have their work to do. They know the overall, goals and where we're trying to get to. It's a really, bit of a moment when you realise you've got your team doing the doing.
And also really lovely when you've got a team as we have now, that you feel they can just get on with it. And of course, we're interested in what they're doing, but actually it allows us to focus on other parts of the business, which is mainly sales for Catherine and more marketing for me. But that way, I think being able to divide up those roles is really crucial, because when it's your business, it's really tempting, isn't it, to try and do everything all the time. And, maybe we were control freaks, but we're trying to be less now.
No,
definitely.
Absolutely.
And I think as well that for all agencies, that COVID was such a significant part of the whole journey, in the way that we work and the way that we operate our business, and that we're fully remote. Our radio days are remote, and I think it's just allowed us to move forward with technology in a way that maybe we weren't expecting. And I think that's been a real positive for us, and that wasn't expected. No one expected it, did it? And I'm sure so many agencies have changed the way that they operate, but I think it's helped us definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose one thing that was interesting, which I find interesting, because is about that sort of vision and dream at the beginning, and what was the ultimate goal when you set out all those years ago.
Well, I don't think we've ever been brilliant at a vision that went on for decades. I mean, I suppose it was to begin with, it was to see how it went. And then after a little while, when we went quite well for a year or two, it was to be a bit bigger. And I suppose as we've grown, so have the number of well-known brands that we've enjoyed working with, really. So I think we've always been ambitious, really. I remember when we were choosing the name Shout, we wanted it to be to do with broadcast, but we didn't want it to rule out anything else. And I'm really glad that we didn't, because we have got competitors who've been radio something or TV this and that. And you think, well, why miss out other things? And, over the years, what we did start off with radio and television, but then obviously video online and podcasting have become so much more to the fore, so we've not had to change names. So I think we've always had that ambition, and whilst we remain a boutique-sized agency, some of the big jobs that we do and are in our vision and ambitions for the future, I think are really important to us. Like last year, for example, we went to Barbados with one of our clients, P&O Cruises, because after working with them for about 15 years. We've done a lot of ship launches, but they're normally in December in Southampton on a very dark and grey night. And then suddenly we were in Barbados, and it was quite technical because there was a part of the event. This is the naming of a ship. You know, when a godmother does that, and I named this ship Viva or Iona or Britannia. And then there's normally a smashing of a bottle of champagne or something sparkly anyway. And so part of this event was on the shore, but part of the event was on the ship, which was not mooring. It wasn't allowed to put the anchor down, but it was staying offshore about 800 meters away. So technically that was a massive thing. Logistically, it was a huge thing. And we were doing television interviews from Barbados back to the UK and some radio ones too. So I would love to see more big jobs like that in our pipeline, if that was possible. I'm sure Catherine shares that too.
I absolutely share that too. And just I think to clients to continue to have budget. You know, these are difficult times, aren't they? And so I think that to have clients that want to be retained by us and to keep that longevity and then allow us to really help innovate as well.
So sort of alluded to, it's the market is challenging at the moment. Do you see that's one of the biggest challenges currently? It is, the market itself is difficult.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I mean, we always feel like we're on the brink of recession, don't we? And I think it's a very difficult time for trading. We've seen a lot of agencies close. I think that's testament to how difficult, the times are. And I think clients, it's the same old story, are wanting more, aren't they, for less? They're cutting their budgets. They're maybe not committing to that longer retainer that you would like them to, a shorter retainer, or crucially, I suppose as well, maybe they're trying to sell it themselves. They can, obviously anyone can, but maybe they're thinking, okay, we'll get something. Whereas obviously if you use shout, then we're going to deliver excellent, results across the board, but they try and sell it themselves. And there's global events, aren't there? It's unprecedented times.
No, definitely. I think it's a big piece of perceived value for me. No, so I was just going to say, I think there's a bit which I have to challenge people sometimes is, what is there's a price, but there's a perceived value of what they think they want, and making sure, okay, so nothing's ever too expensive. There's just perceived value of what they're getting. And I've had some, I've learned to be more challenging with clients now it's not if they say, it's too expensive, but it's not too expensive. You're not seeing the perceived value in what we're offering. So where is the value and what is your budget? And we'll accommodate accordingly.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, we've tried to do similarly. Yeah. I mean, I think what we can't do is if you already feel that you're competitively priced, which we do, and somebody comes along and they've got less budget than a particular service costs, we can't just say, well, okay, we'll take the job and we'll just do it for less. But what we can do is adapt that actual service. So, if it was a radio day and we would normally guarantee 12 interviews, for example, maybe we would offer slightly less than that, so you could still do it. And we have tried to add little add-on things as well for the value. So, for example, anybody who does a radio day with us, they get 30 minutes of online media training as well, which is really good. And we've just introduced something else more recently too, which is a little highlights package. So we would always give the audio from any interviews we've got, but sometimes the brands that maybe a bigger boss isn't quite hands-on with the radio day, but you kind of want to get them interested. It's kind of like a little highlights package in the hope that would encourage somebody to listen to more of the audio and see more, look into the success of that campaign in a bit more detail. So it's trying to think of things that you can do that aren't going to cost an arm and a leg, but would actually be valuable to the end user.
I think what you said about I remember, obviously I've worked with you guys before several times, and the highlights break is just the bit you want to put on the chairman's inbox, because that's all he really cares about. And if you can, as a marketing director or whatever role you have, you know really your job is to do the best you can. Your job is actually to keep your boss happy. And if you can give him that highlights reel that he wants to then send to his shareholders, you've won. So that's a really great way to add that extra value.
Well, you can look forward to that next time you come to us then, Rob.
Absolutely.
Going to get.
I suppose, so we were sort of, again, it's getting, the times are tough. So how do you currently market the business and find your customers, and what do you find the most challenging in that?
Well, I suppose a long time ago, we learned that lesson about it's great that you've done a good job, but you can't then just forget about it and not talk to the customers. So I think we've got much better at talking to both customers, but also people we would like to be our clients too. So, I mean, some of it is just quite straightforward. So, and it might be what you'd expect, such as doing a newsletter every week. We do every month. We do one which we call it news about broadcast and broadcast PR. So we try to make it about interesting things that would be relevant. So it might sometimes be talking about a show, you know, something like I'm a Celebrity, for example, I might throw up a host of new potential third-party spokespeople. So we might include something like that. Or if a host on a particular radio or TV show was going, you know, that could be interesting as well. So we try to make it interesting and not put too much about shout. Maybe one little thing, perhaps if we've got an event coming up, we might mention that at the end. But I think probably our events are our biggest way of reaching out and making clients that we already work with happy, and probably enticing new prospects as well. And so we call them small talks and big talks. You've probably been to one, I think.
Probably,
Rob,
I'm sure we've been, yeah.
Yeah. And so the small talk, we tend to do those more online these days, but not always. That would be when we get one speaker from the world of broadcast, normally pretty senior. So we've just had the executive editor from Radio 4's consumer team. So he oversees You and Yours, and he's got a couple of podcasts as well that you might have heard about, Sliced Bread and Toast being two of them. Another one's called Dough. And he came to speak to our audience. It's a kind of invite-only thing, but you've only got to be on our mailing list really to get the invite, just for an hour. And it's one of those things, it would be really hard for another company not working in the sector to get access to a speaker like that. But actually, we offer him, and he's there for an hour. You can ask any questions you want. It's obviously a really good contact to make. And last October, we went back to what we were doing pre-pandemic, having a big talk, which was we hire a much bigger venue, probably with about 100 people. We have a panel of four speakers, and we've got one. We're going to call it A Day in the Life of the BBC, because all our four speakers are big cheeses at the BBC. We've got BBC Breakfast. We've got the boss of BBC Sounds. So I think that will be really interesting, as you know, with audiences are moving much more obviously to podcasts and digital recordings, and a couple of others too. So do come to it, Rob, and anybody listening, you just have to contact us at Shout, and you'll be very welcome as well. It's going to be in the city near Fenchurch. So it's 15th of
We'll
May.
definitely share links. Yeah, absolutely. In all the show notes, so people can find that for sure.
Yeah, but you know, going back to the marketing thing, I mean, we think we get less interest probably from social media. We obviously do bits of that as well, but we think it's when you try to offer something more personal, I suppose, and more perceived value, I suppose. So I think it's our events are much better than, I don't know, tweets or stuff on Instagram. It doesn't seem to work quite so much.
And they remember our workshops. We run workshops as well. So training tasters and kind of behind the 10 steps to perfect broadcast PR heaven and all of those sorts of things. So people come back to us years after, said, God, came to one of your events, and they're still clients now. So I think Keren's right, that personal touch definitely works.
I think there was a record of 9 years, wasn't there, between somebody being like a junior account exec, and then suddenly they were much higher up the pecking order, and they had budget, and then they came to us and said, "Oh yeah." When I just started, I remember coming to your workshop, and then we're going, "Do we remember them?" Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But yeah, it's great, isn't it? That it's a bit like you put a favour in the favour bank, don't you? So we do offer quite junior people those opportunities too, and then sometimes it comes back, and it's a job.
Yeah, and I guess there's with the sort of people that you work with, people move around into different businesses. So if you can build a strong relationship, if they go from, say one organization to another, you keep, obviously that you're anchored into one business, but then they're sort of slotting you into another as well. So building those relationships are really key. And, it's testament to you. I think use people, that the people want to work with you, because there's all sorts of options. Generally, people like working with people that align to their values and their ways of working, and people you just enjoy working with. I'm sure there's, in my instance, probably people far better than me potentially, but generally people like working with me because they like me. Not, that's the first and foremost, one of the most important things in any business, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
I suppose we have a closing question, which I think we're interested to which I think is always gives some of the most interesting answers. Is with all the experience we've spoken about, what's the one single piece of advice you'd give to anyone in a position like yours?
Yeah.
Can we have one piece each?
One piece each. Yeah,
go for it.
I'll give my piece. We always have to share our pieces. I think never, ever become complacent. Always keep your eye on the ball.
There you go. That's good. I like that one.
Karen Scott.
And I would say it's been, it's about, which is not short and snappy. It's about listening to people, isn't it? Really, always keep your ear open to listen to your clients, what they want. It's not always sort of pushing on them what you think they want, because actually, if a client thinks that you understand them, then you're going to have a much better rapport. And listening to your team as well. Never valued a team so much probably, and it's about what they want too, because the happier they are at work, and I believe that everybody should be happy at work, because we do such a lot of it, don't we, over a lifetime. The happier they are at work, then the better the service the client gets, and it becomes a positive little circle.
Yeah.
So listen, if I had to sum it up in a word.
Listen.
What she wants to say. Listen. Yeah, that's good.
Love it. Love it.
That's heartfelt. That's good. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. And we'll definitely, like I said, we'll link to the Shout website and all your social platforms, so people can find out everything about you. And certainly these sessions you were speaking about, they sound fantastic. So yeah.
Yes, everyone's welcome.
Well, brilliant. I think it's been a really interesting session. Thank you very much. It's been lots of inspiration there, insights and tips. I think the one thing that's really underrated is resilience in business, and clearly you two have got tons of that, because there's that's something that I think in my internal monologue, I often just don't feel I have resilience. I was talking to Catherine before we started, and actually you realise when you look back, you're actually more resilient than you think.
You do, Rob.
You do.
You are so more resilient.
We're lucky, Rob, because... Yeah, but I think for us as well, we're really lucky that Catherine and I, that we've got each other. We set up the business together. We've known each other since we were in our early 20s, when we both trained together to be journalists, and we're really good friends. And I think, that has carried us through some ups and downs, I would say. And yeah, I think we're very lucky to have that too. I think it's interesting. I said that when I my first hire here, I spoke to, it was actually my mum's partner, and I said, Mick, I now need somebody else. And he said, employ the best person you can afford, and if they're a friend, all the better, because you'll need somebody. You're number two. You need somebody that's got you and understands you. And yeah, I think that's a very, very important part. Is that what you did then? Yeah, I couldn't really. Did you do that too? And I couldn't really afford Simon, if I'm honest. But I knew that I need someone that you need to employ people that are better than you ultimately in lots of things that you do, and that's what I did. And I was very fortunate that Simon was having a bit of a career change himself at that point. So the planets aligned, and he's our MD now, and he runs the show. I sometimes I think, oh God, what would I do without him? And that's the beauty of getting that first hire right. Definitely. So there you go. Thank you for indulging us, Rob. I've really enjoyed talking to you about us. They're always really interesting. Thank you very much. And I suppose to everyone listening, thank you who's watching or listening. Thank you for listening to the Content and Business podcast. Make sure you like, rate, share, and follow this podcast. And we'll see or speak to you again soon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Cheers.